I was still hooked to monitors in the delivery room, holding my newborn daughter, when my mother-in-law picked up her bag, looked down at me with pure disgust, and said, "A girl? And a weak mother who can't even stand up? There's no room for a useless wife in our family." My husband didn't defend me. He just grabbed his coat, looked at his phone, and said, "She's right. You're going to be a burden." They walked out, leaving me alone in that cold room with a baby, expecting me to break. But they made one fatal mistake. They forgot who raised me. 3 hours later, the hospital door swung open. My mother walked in, not with tears, but with a leather briefcase, an ironclad legal strategy, and a top-tier family lawyer who was about to dismantle every single thing my in-laws owned. My name is Clara Vance, and at 29 years old, I thought I was living a life built on trust and stability. Before I stepped back to focus on my pregnancy, I spent years working as a high-level paralegal. But my husband, Julian, and his overbearing mother, Beatrice, spent months convincing me that family came first. They insisted I put my career on hold, assuring me that Julian's income was more than enough and that they would surround me with total love and support. I believed them. I let my guard down, completely unaware that the moment I became vulnerable, the mask would slip. The shift happened seconds after I gave birth. Exhausted, sweating, and holding our newborn daughter in my arms, I looked up expecting to see joy. Instead, Beatrice picked up her designer handbag, looked down at me with cold disgust, and snorted. "A girl? And a weak mother who can't even stand up after labor? There's no room for a useless wife in our family." I turned to Julian, waiting for him to step in. He didn't. He just pulled on his coat, checked his phone, and shrugged. "She's right, Clara. You're going to be a burden." They turned and walked out, leaving me alone in the sterile silence of that room. The sterile hum of the hospital room felt suffocating. My newborn was sleeping soundly in her plastic bassinet, completely oblivious to the cruel betrayal that had just played out. I sat up, my body aching, but my paralegal instincts, suppressed for over a year, suddenly kicked into high gear. Tears weren't going to fix this. Evidence was. I reached for my personal iPad resting on the bedside table. Julian had forgotten that our devices were still synced through our shared cloud drive. With trembling fingers, I opened his messaging app and hit search. I didn't have to scroll far. An email thread between Julian and Beatrice from 3 weeks ago caught my eye. The subject line read, "Post-birth exit strategy." My blood ran cold as I read line after line. Beatrice had drafted a step-by-step plan to lock me out of our marital home while I was recovered in the hospital, claim I was unfit due to postpartum depression, and strip me of every dollar in our shared accounts. Julian hadn't just agreed, he'd replied, "Sounds good, Mom. Let's make sure she leaves with nothing." It was a premeditated ambush. I took a deep breath, took screenshots of every single message, and backed them up to a private drive. Then I dialed my mother, Evelyn. When she answered, I didn't cry. I kept my voice dead level. "Mom, they think I have nowhere to go. I need you here." Exactly 45 minutes later, the door to my recovery room swung open. My mother, Evelyn, walked in. She didn't burst into frantic tears or panic. She possessed the cool, unshakable composure of a woman who had spent 30 years managing corporate real estate portfolios. Behind her stepped Arthur Vance, her longtime family lawyer and one of the most formidable litigators in the city. He was holding a heavy leather briefcase. "Show me," Arthur said, skipping the pleasantries and pulling up a chair beside my bed. I handed over the iPad. For 10 minutes, the only sound in the room was the soft rustle of Arthur swiping through the screenshots of Julian and Beatrice's post-birth exit strategy. Evelyn stood beside my bassinet, gently stroking my daughter's dark hair, her eyes burning with a silent, terrible fury. Arthur finally set the tablet down and adjusted his wire-rimmed glasses. A dark, vicious smile touched his lips. "They think they're playing chess, Clara, but they don't even know the rules. Transferring marital assets, plotting illegal lockouts, and fabricating mental instability. They've handed us total leverage on a silver platter." Before my in-laws even knew I was aware of their scheme, Arthur was already drafting emergency court orders. The trap was officially set. 2 days later, I was discharged. Evelyn drove me straight to the house I had spent 4 years turning into a home. When I opened the front door, the living room was stacked high with black trash bags containing my clothes, books, and personal belongings. Julian was sitting on the sofa, scrolling through his phone. Beatrice stood by the kitchen island, holding a mug of coffee. Neither of them even looked at my newborn daughter. "Oh, good, you're back," Beatrice sneered, adjusting her pearls. "We left your stuff by the door to save you the trouble. We've already changed the security codes. Sign this voluntary separation agreement, take your personal items, and leave quietly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Julian nodded, avoiding my eyes. "It's for the best, Clara. You just aren't a fit for our lifestyle anymore." I didn't utter a single word. I simply stepped aside. Arthur Vance walked through the doorway, flanked by a uniformed county sheriff's deputy. Arthur opened his leather briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of stamped legal documents, placing them firmly on the coffee table. "Mr. and Mrs. Sterling," Arthur said, his voice echoing in the grand foyer. "I am serving you with an emergency injunction for exclusive occupancy, an asset freeze on all accounts, and a court summons for intentional infliction of emotional distress and conspiracy to commit financial fraud." Beatrice dropped her coffee mug. It shattered across the hardwood floor. The color completely drained from Julian's face as Arthur laid out the full scale of our retaliation. He tried to stammer out an explanation, but Arthur didn't give him room to breathe. "Did you really think hiding $180,000 in an offshore shell account 2 months before your wife gave birth would go unnoticed?" Arthur asked, pulling a second folder from his briefcase. "My forensic accounting team spent the last 48 hours tracking every dollar you secretly funneled out of your joint marital funds." Beatrice's sharp composure shattered into utter panic. She lunged forward, her voice screeching in desperation. "This is a private family matter. You can't just freeze our accounts or kick my son out of his own house. I paid the down payment on this property." "Actually, Mrs. Sterling, you didn't," Arthur replied with ice-cold precision. "The property title clearly lists Clara and Julian as joint owners, and under state law, your unauthorized financial tampering constitutes severe marital fraud. Furthermore, your written involvement in this scheme makes you a co-conspirator." The deputy stepped forward, placing a hand near his belt. "Sir, ma'am, you have 30 minutes to collect your immediate personal belongings and step off the premises under this court mandate." Julian collapsed back onto the sofa, staring at the legal papers as his entire world unraveled. The legal dismantling was swift and merciless. Over the next 3 months, Arthur's team dissected every aspect of Julian's financial life. Because of the clear evidence of financial fraud and premeditated abandonment, the judge showed zero leniency. I was awarded the house outright, along with full sole custody of my daughter and substantial child support payments that Julian couldn't negotiate down. His attempts to hide marital funds backfired spectacularly. He was ordered to repay every single dollar he had siphoned away, plus my legal fees. To cover his mounting debts and avoid potential criminal charges for court evasion, Julian had to sell his luxury car and surrender his equity in his business. Beatrice's reputation in her high society social circle was utterly destroyed when news of the lawsuit leaked. To protect her son from total financial ruin, she was forced to put her own suburban home on the market. 6 months after that terrible afternoon in the hospital, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Julian. "Clara, please. Mom pushed me too far. I made a terrible mistake. I miss you and our baby. Can we talk?" I looked at the message, felt absolutely nothing, and deleted it without responding. I blocked his number permanently, closing that chapter for good. He didn't miss my daughter or me. He just missed the comfortable life he took for granted before his arrogance ruined everything. Today, life looks entirely different. I renovated the house, transforming it into a bright, peaceful sanctuary filled with warmth and laughter. With my mother's unwavering support, I officially reactivated my legal license and opened a boutique family law practice. Now, I spend my days helping other women fight back against the very same manipulation and financial abuse I once survived. Every evening when I hold my daughter, I look into her bright, innocent eyes and know that she will grow up in a home built on self-respect, strength, and unwavering truth. She will never have to doubt her worth because she was raised by women who refused to let anyone treat them as disposable. Looking back, my in-laws were right about one thing. There truly was no room for a useless wife in their family. But they were wrong about who held the power. Because in the end, I wasn't useless. I was their absolute undoing.